Men crying.
All this crying in there, like, it's just a bit much, isn't it? Like, everyone, I don't really feel like there's a reason for him to cry.
Anita, human behavior expert. Candace, all things well-being here. Okay, men crying. Men crying. So on the recent Love Island clip, there was some debate from the other guys that one of the guys had cried over a girl, and it was, oh, why is he overreacting? What's wrong with him? Why is he crying? And it's brought up a big conversation about men having permission to cry and whether they are supported by other men if they do.
Yes, love it.
Yes. Yes.
One of my absolute favourite topics. And I think as well, it is that thing, it's like supported by other men, and are they supported by women as well, which is the,
That's also true. That's also true. I think women do get uncomfortable with men crying, because we have our own conditioning. So when I looked at that clip, I was surprised because I was like, wow, they actually seem like quite like dismissive of his feelings. And, they felt that his reaction was too much. And this guy was obviously experiencing some heartbreak, some internal wounding. And I wonder if, according to stats, men do cry, but it's about half as much as women. So men will cry statistically 2 to 4 times a month. So, 2 to 3 times a month. Women will cry 4 to 6 times a month.
That's a high stat for men. I wonder how many men are thinking they don't cry that much.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the stats I pulled up, and I was like, wow. Unless ChatGPT be lying to me, which we know he's a liar sometimes. Notice how I made him a he.
Unless he's including all the babies.
Probably. But also the question is crying in public. So, with your experience working with men, honestly, when I was coaching, I did not work with a lot of men. And yeah, and honestly, there was some, like, every time the men that I did work with, the reason why I stopped working with men, because it would be really good. There was breakthroughs and stuff, but also sometimes when you're leading people to a space of having a breakthrough or sitting with them, they start to think like, they cross lines. So actually, for me, I had a couple of things that arise, and then I stopped coaching men quite early on. I don't know what it's like for you, but please share your experience and let me know.
So in terms of men crying, so I definitely would say, as per the stats, there is more women that will cry in coaching than there is men. But there are also some women that come into coaching that do struggle to cry. So it's not just a man thing. But definitely my experience is that much of the work that I do with certain clients is around bringing up emotion. And it is something that I do ask all of my clients at some point throughout a coaching process is, how are they with tears? How are they with crying? Especially if we've had a few sessions and I've not seen any emotion come up, it's something that I really will question. But I do, a big part of this whole crying thing is, it's not about whether we can cry or we can't cry. It's more the question of, how do we stop ourselves from crying? Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, intense. Whoa.
Yeah. Because crying is innate within us, right? It's something that is part of being a human, to have emotions, to, and the thing is, it's like, how have we managed to stop ourselves? So when I coach people, what I'm looking for a lot of the time, as you will know within this, it's where our eyes are going. And so when we're looking up, we're usually remembering, or we're making something up. Yeah. When we look down is when we're going internal. So when we look down, this is more when we're accessing emotion, or when we're internally talking to ourselves. And so often when I'm coaching people, whenever I see there's a potential of they're getting into some depth around something, they may start to look down, or they may just take a quick glimpse down, and then they'll be going up. And at that point, that is when I will stop and I will start to question what's just gone on for them. And they won't even realize it a lot of the time straight away that that's just what's happened. But often it's like, I've entered into that emotional space, I'm looking down, but I want to stop myself, because as we know, if we cry, we're going like this, tears are coming down, aren't they? So what do we do when we want to not cry? Is if we look up, it's going to hold those tears in. It's going to stop that water from coming out.
Wow. Wow,
Oh,
that's huge. I mean, as a woman, I'm not a crier per se. And in
okay.
fact, even when I was in coaching, I didn't feel that I self-talk all the emotions. So, you know, and then I'm suppressing sadness, it comes out as anger. So when I start to get angrier, I generally ask myself, whoa, whoa, what am I sad about? Because that's what I used to do. I used to do angry. I was a very angry mom. I was an angry partner back in the day. And now when I start doing anger, I'm like, hold on a minute, what am I sad about?
I love
That's the
that. I love
suppression
that.
because I don't give myself permission to be sad. I sort of unlocked that ability to open my heart and be vulnerable and feel once I did yoga training, because as you know, yoga training just unpacks your whole life. And that was the breakthrough, because I was so stuck in the rigidity of my emotions and my body that I needed that open heart yin practice to be like, boom, you
And
know?
was that practice enough, or was there any exploration around, was it not okay to cry as you were growing up?
I think I haven't. I realized just now sitting with you, I don't know if I've done the exploration. I've done the reflection,
Mm, mm, yeah,
self-reflection, but to
yeah.
sit with a coach and unpack it and dissect it, which is the most, I think, effective way to really do this, it is different, you know?
Mm,
And I
yeah.
wonder if men, do you think, I mean, men don't seek help or support as much as women, right? If
Uh,
they did, would there be more openness for emotion and vulnerability?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the question. And I think, what you've just given there is a great example. Like, we have entitled this, around men crying. But really, what you've just described is a masculine trait. So it's not that it's only men that will do masculine, where they will use anger instead of emotion, instead of not emotion, because that's it, anger is an emotion, but instead of sadness, let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether we're a man or a woman, we
Mm.
will have access to both masculine and feminine traits within us. So really, this conversation, if we're really, not going for the big explosive titles, we can do that.
Yeah.
But once we really get
Yeah.
into it, the question is really around the masculine parts of both men and women, why they don't allow themselves to cry, really. And so
Mm.
this sort of exploration will always come down to, within coaching, within this, is all around what potentially has happened to us in our earlier years that has made us access more the masculine in certain situations than the feminine, whether we are a man or a girl or a boy. And so this is
And
the really key stuff. Yeah.
that's really, I mean, obviously we know that boys get told, come on, be a big boy, don't cry. You know what I mean? From a young age. But I also remember being told that, like, what are you crying about? Stop crying or you're going to get a smack. I mean, I'm from the smacking era. My parents aren't bad people, but that's just the
Sure.
era they came from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I mean, I do remember that, that
Mm.
there was a space where feelings weren't really validated, and it's so and I guess for young boys that might be even more so, because if they start to show emotion and they're crying when they're 3 or 4, something happens, they might be told, come on, you're a big boy, hey, come on, like it, and it's very dismissed. No
Yeah.
one's going to sit and ask them, well, how are you feeling? I mean, I noticed my sister with her daughter, because obviously she's had time to investigate how to be a better parent than any of us did, because she's 10 years younger, but she like sits down and asks her about her feelings.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
good point.
and me as a parent, I didn't do that as well. I was like, I was in survival, so I didn't have time to ask my children about their feelings. I was 19 with twins. But I see that and I go, wow, so a lot more parents are doing that. But I wonder if the parents are doing that with their boys.
I would say some are, for sure. I mean, definitely in the circles that I move in, just like what you're describing with your sister, it's much more normalized now to ask that, because enough of us have gone through a process of therapy going, we weren't ever asked about our feelings because no one taught our parents to investigate theirs. No one taught us to. And as we've got older and we're doing this sort of work, we're now learning about ourselves. So it's become more normalized to ask kids that question. So I definitely see it
Absolutely.
a lot. Like I see it a lot,
Yeah.
whether I'm watching a TV program or I'm,
Yeah.
looking at my
Yeah.
friends, I'm going, yeah, there's a difference here to, what we're now
Yeah.
learning as everything. What are we trying to improve as time goes on?
Mm.
What we weren't taught ourselves growing up. So,
Exactly. I mean, I do
yeah.
realize my son, obviously, I had him later. We talk about feelings. How are you feeling? I'm feeling. And, there's the back and forth of if we're having a disagreement, which isn't very often, but it's well, I feel this way and you feel like so it's very interesting. And I think he is able to share his feelings a lot more. But I wonder, let's look at men in their 40s. I mean, Gen Y, not millennials, ha 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 ha, or Gen Y. They are, I mean, not to give too much away, but I find that a lot of men, unless they're doing the work, a lot of men in my generation, I'm 46, are avoidant with emotion and vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah, and that would make sense, right? It absolutely would make sense why we're a product of obviously what we're used to doing and what we're used to practicing. So, it makes a lot of sense for that to be the case. And I think
Mm,
there's someone that wrote in. It might be worth reading this out now. His
yes.
experience. So he's actually a bit younger. So he's 33. But even so,
Even so.
this is an age range that I do coach quite a lot around, and they
Mm-hmm.
are also, many of them, brought up similarly to us. They're not, they're not sitting there going that their parents were asking them anything different. This is all, as we say, quite new. So he's saying, I'm 33 right now, and I would say from the ages of 10 to 30, I might have cried only once or twice when I was drunk. Around the age of 30, after doing a lot of the inner work, I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd cried, and I realized I couldn't. I had somehow lost the ability to be able to. Now looking back, I can see that I had tabooed it in myself, and my subconscious wouldn't let me cry. Currently, I have retrained myself. I'm now crying about 2 to 3 times a year on average. So the stats are, but
Yes,
it
that's
feels so
lies.
good to allow myself to cry. The best way I can describe the feeling is almost the same feeling I get after coming back from a run. So, I mean, that's pretty good. When I see something like once to twice
Wow.
a year, I'm like, that's to me, that's,
Mm.
some women don't even cry that much. So,
No,
yeah.
no,
Mm.
wow. That's interesting. Relating it to a feeling of like going for a run. I
Mm.
wonder if there's space to make crying not something we wait to experience when we're sad. Like,
Mm.
I mean, this is why the holistic practices are so good, because they do induce states like this, vulnerability and tears
Mm.
and unlocking, because
Mm.
we shouldn't be waiting till we're in crisis to express the emotion. And I mean,
Mm.
the emotion can give off a good feeling if we give ourselves permission to express it. And look, I've got to say, I'm probably coming from a hypocritical point of view right now, because I haven't been in that space a lot at the moment, because I'm not teaching. For me, only being in the teaching space, the holistic space, it seems that's when I give myself permission to unlock and be vulnerable. So, given that men don't spend, I'm generalizing, don't spend a lot of time in these spaces, they stay locked, right? What would be something that the first step you could give to a man that is that wants to unlock this part of himself a little bit
Yeah.
more? What would you say?
Yeah. Again, it's the investigation of how are they stopping themselves from crying. I was watching something the other day. Again, it was a guy in his 40s actually, and he was talking about, this is very typical, right? When people go that they do cry when they're watching a film or something, so
Mm-hmm.
emotions do rise when they're watching a program that emotes something. So again, it's that those questions
Yeah.
are always around what's allowing them to do it in those moments versus
Yeah.
in real life situations.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and it's funny that you say that, because I mean, I remember years ago dating this person who we shall not name, that was very closed off from their feelings, very had to play the masculine archetype. And then we went to see a movie, and I think it was bloody Nicole Kidman, and it's kind of like a semi-kids movies. I like those type of things. And the bear was trapped. The bear was chained, and I forget what the movie is. It's something about the Golden Compass or something. And as he was watching this movie, oh, sorry, my love.
Yeah,
Pivotal
it's
moment.
cracking out up a bit, quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So as he was watching this kid's movie about a bear being chained up, he was emotional, and I was quite surprised. I was like, "Wow, you don't cry, like you don't, expose yourself or anything." And I was like, "Wow, that really moved you." And he said, "Well, yeah. I mean, this giant, beautiful bear with all this strength was chained up. Maybe he felt chained to the relationship."
Yeah.
Maybe that was the metaphor. Damn. Writing was on the wall.
I'm just watching the
Okay.
clip that might come of that with the visual, the actual the
Yeah, I
potential, the
know.
clip of a
I need to
bear or
insert. I need to find that clip, honestly. So I guess how are we stopping ourselves from crying? Whew. And I guess I I I think what I will do is just like, I don't know, I try to just like avoid my emotions, and then I let them pour out. With the men I've been with, I notice they will busy themselves
Mhm.
with things,
Yeah.
like, because they're always doers. So they like to, I notice that occupy, occupy themselves is how they would stop themselves from crying. And
Mhm.
I guess when we look at emotion and how, as a children, how do we stop ourselves from crying, right?
Well, this is another thing. I'm assuming we'll do the same as kids. I haven't actually quizzed any recently, but once we get into the real detail of it, what we're doing is, as you say, is we're busying ourselves. And so when we get, what are we actually doing internally? Because externally, the busyness is causing what? And what is causing is us to stop thinking about what
Yeah.
is making us cry. Because really, how we cry is
Mm.
through thinking, is through our self talk. So if you ever, or say you're watching a film, there's something happening in the film, and then within ourselves, we're still translating that into something in order to make us cry. So what we're doing when we're crying, if anyone wants to really pay attention to this, is, and let me know if there's anything different, but what's happening inside is normally, how do we start to cry? Say we're on our own. How we start to cry is because we're having thoughts about something that are making us cry. The more that we think about them, the more that we cry. And this is like, I experiment with this all the time. It's like the tears will arise, and then it's like, how do we stop those tears from arising or from coming out? Busy ourselves, but change what we're doing in our mind. Think about something else. Tell ourselves not to cry. Tell ourselves something. Another way is also becoming really present. So if there's
Mm.
tears arising and there's crying, and you just, and this is not to say this is what people should do, but it's just, what's our different method of doing this is like becoming really present to just what's happening in the room is going to make you stop crying.
Yeah.
We need thoughts in order, or visuals. We need something in order to keep that in place. When
So,
we're
I mean,
really super present, we won't cry.
presence presence is obviously amazing. We need that, right? But why then is it important to have vulnerability and crying? I mean, if our goal is to not have thoughts and to be present, so why do we need it?
Well, because in theory, so the way we've come to be as human beings is through a process of thinking, yeah, and becoming complex creatures. So if it was as easy as just going, I'm just going to be present, and it was just like a switch and you were then just present, then there's no problem. But if what we're doing is we're trying to bypass the process by not going through the emotions, then we're not really just going to be present. So it's like it's a step process of how we became to be the way that we are. It's quite a
Mhm.
complex process. We
Yeah.
go through the first few years of our lives being emotional, programming ourselves with all of the, the mind and the body programs that we have. And it takes time for these programs to set in place. So in order to reverse the way that we are, we're not just going to click our fingers, suddenly become present and, that's it.
Mhm.
We've got to kind
Yeah,
of
otherwise
unravel
it's
and
just it's
yeah,
avoidance, right?
yeah.
It's not
It's a
presence,
bypassing.
it's
Yeah,
another
yeah.
distraction.
Yeah, and it's presence in the moment. It's like going, okay, I've got loads of shit. I've got all my stuff, but I don't want to unpack it all. I'm just going to sit and do some meditations in complete, in a completely
Mm,
in a complete other realm. And so then our life becomes we're a bit messy in our day-to-day life, and then we've got this escapism practice of purely just meditation, which gets me into another realm, and then there's this part in between that isn't done. So you're not going to integrate those two worlds together without
mm,
having looked at all of the stuff in between, which is
mm.
allowing that emotion to. And this is the thing, like the key thing is that what tends to happen is we turn the tap on once we allow ourselves to, and we might cry and cry and cry and cry and cry for a period, for a while. And as long as we allow that stuff, that emotion, those tears to keep coming, at some point they will start to dissipate because we become more regulated and more balanced. And I've definitely seen this, for myself, and I've seen this through the processes with people I've coached, where there is a process that once it's turned on, it will go for a little while potentially. It doesn't mean it's always going to flow. The tap's never going to turn off. The more that we can clear it out, the more chance there is that it will genuinely just not be as
Yeah.
sad anymore. The
Mm,
emotions become
mm.
less extreme and we become more balanced, so we don't cry as much in theory.
Yes. And I think, look, and I think it's a practice and a process that doesn't actually end. Just because you've done it a couple of times doesn't mean you're not going to be back there. As I'm sitting here, I'm realizing, whoa, like I've actually been, because I've been so focused on, different projects and things, I've been quite avoidant to my feelings and deliberately going, nope, nope, I'm going to deal with that later. There's nothing dramatically wrong. There's nothing really bad happening. And there's
Mhm.
honestly nothing bad happening in the grand scheme of things in my life. But I'm not even giving myself permission that whatever's happening for me is valid. I'm not allowing myself to experience it. It's coming up though, the minute I have a glass of wine. Do you know
There
what I
it
mean?
is.
Suddenly I'm like, and I actually haven't been like that in like 10 years. So,
Yeah.
that's been happening a couple of times. And I'm like, whoa, like this stuff, like that's what happens when I suppress what's going on for me. And when this starts happening, then I know, okay, I got to sit, I got to have the breakthrough, and big changes coming, big things are happening.
Yeah.
And I wonder though, I mean, a lot of men go through life forcing this away. My dad does not connect with his feelings. And when he does it in big outbursts. So clearly I learned this from somewhere,
Yeah.
whether it's anger, sadness, whatever. He
Yeah.
waits so long to have vulnerability and softness and,
Yeah.
there's a lot of yang. So I can't imagine what this is doing to the body on a physiological level to suppress your emotions,
Mhm.
So that's the question. Why? Why bother? Why cry?
Yeah. 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 Why?
Yeah. I mean, I know the answer, but you tell us.
I mean, for me, the key line is crying is clearing. So
Crying is clear.
every time we have an emotion, we allow that to flow. Most people, if they're not going straight into judgment of themselves, but most people will say that it actually felt good to allow those tears to cry. Because otherwise it's like you say there, it will be in the system, it will be in the body, it will be building up, the energy's not moving. The minute we can just
Uh-huh.
allow that, it's like we're allowing that energy to flow through, to come out, and we're
Yeah.
not holding on to it anymore. Is it, and then it, as it comes out in anger, frustration, all the rest of it. Um, I mean, even if that comes out in that way, it's fine because they're getting it's being got out of the system. But if it's not genuinely being got out in the way that it's meant, it's still going to be, bubbling away in there somewhere. So
And so if crying is clearing, but someone is locked up, they're just complete. And I am around people that are like this. They're so locked up. How would you help someone get unlocked? Uh, if like, what's the first thing they can do at home? Say they're not in coaching yet. Say they're not there yet. Is there anything they can do at home to start the unlocking process?
well, as I said, as I said before, is that thing of allowing themselves to see if there is something arising within them, to really start to pay attention to what they're doing with that. So if it
Yeah.
starts to, if they can feel something, because normally we can feel something, going on, it's about paying attention in mind to, what are we saying to ourselves? And I've heard, plenty of men in this particular case say to themselves exactly what we said earlier: you can't cry, you're a man. big boys don't cry. They'll start to use judgment language to stop themselves
Mm.
from being able to cry. So this work is, I mean, if you can do it on your own, great. But this is really about starting to really get into the intricacies of what is going on in your mind. And people may not even realize they've got a voice in their head. It's possible that people don't actually realize that they have self-talk and thoughts. We hear that. So it's about knowing that that's there and really paying attention to what are we saying to ourselves in our heads if we are feeling something arising, and what are we doing in those moments? Are we putting our heads up in order to not allow the
Mm.
fears to come?
Mm. Just
Are we
on that
distracting
last
ourselves
thing
by
you said
moving?
about the eye accessing, so again, yeah, obviously, left hand is remembering, right is creating as we look up, right, and creating meaning,
It
looking
depends on
for
how we're wired. So we might be
how we're
reversed.
wired.
So I
Yes,
don't,
this can be
yeah.
crossed the other way, guys. Don't go around. Just to bring up the Erica Kirk thing, which I don't know if you're familiar with, the Charlie Kirk's wife, and she does this thing. I've been watching her eye accessing cues religiously, and I
Yeah.
find them fascinating because she does looking up all the time. I don't know if it's this to denote looking up at the heavens, or actually it's just a check out thing. She also does side eye looking all the time, which is self talk, right? That's that back and forth quick eye movement. So I find that interesting. Is it?
So this is why with all of this stuff, it's not about trying to guess what they're
Yeah,
doing based on what
yeah.
we think we know. So things are
Mm,
being mapped as per,
mhm,
this means this means that. But in this type of work, it's about knowing how it's been mapped, but not telling the person that they're lying because of the way that it's been mapped
yeah,
and we've been taught. It's
yeah.
about observing what they're doing and checking in with them, what's happening in
Mm,
those moments. So I will say, if I see her looking up, or I'll say, what happens for you as you look up? And then she would be able to tell you if she's going
mm,
to tell you. 'Cause
mm.
otherwise we sit there and go, I've learnt this, they must be lying, or
Yeah,
they're doing this. Like, well, no,
yeah.
they're looking up, so only
Well,
they
it's
can
just
tell
the
you if they want to
complete
tell
check.
you.
When you look up, because and you're having emotion, you're trying to stop emotion. So I'm just trying to gauge that for as witnessing someone who looks up all the time, they must be. I mean, because when we
Well, they
looks
might
directly
not
up,
be.
that's
So just in what I was saying there earlier is like when I've had situations with clients and I can see that they're going down to look, it looks like they're accessing something because there's a sense of something happening, and then they'll suddenly. It's as if they're stopping themselves. So I will always check in with them and say, is
okay.
that it's not
Yeah,
to go that every time anyone's looking up, it means that they're not trying to, it's
yeah.
obviously watching what they're doing and then checking in. Is that what was happening for
Well,
them?
I'll send her a message and check in and get back to you. Okay, so in regards to men crying, I just want to say something before we finish. We're keeping these shorter because we ramble. Okay. I think I realized when I was reflecting on us having this chat that women are constantly asking men, what are you thinking? I think what we want is to know how you're feeling, because perhaps we don't know because there's a lot locked off. And does that come from not having enough vulnerability? I just want to know, what is your perspective on that? Do you think that when we ask
I
what we're
think.
thinking, is as a generalization, are we really asking, what are you feeling?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a generalization, right? So it's what is
You
it
know,
for
I
that
love to
person?
generalize.
If
Yeah.
well, if a woman's asking, that's for her to know why she's asking, right? I guess it's what is it that they're wanting in that moment? I don't know.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
I don't know. And it's kind of going how you feel. And again, it's feeding into if they're not feelers, men or women, then asking them what they're feeling isn't always going to be the right question. Yeah.
Interesting,
So
interesting, interesting. So my partner, I ask him what he's thinking or feeling. I don't think he likes it. But for
okay.
me, when I'm asking, what are you thinking? What I really want to know is, how are you feeling? Because I find it hard to actually interpret any of his feelings because he's quite withdrawn sometimes. He's like just busy work, and for me to connect, I need the feeling, the vulnerability, what's going on for you, da da
Yeah.
da da.
But what I would say on that, and this is to
Mm,
anyone listening, rather than trying to generalize about the question, is so what you're asking him is you're asking him a question, but you're not telling him why you're asking him that question. So instead of just asking the question with an agenda that we're not explaining, it's like explain your agenda and then see what comes back
explain
from
your
that.
agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So I asked you, crying is clearing, step one. Step two is if you're feeling locked, you need to sit with yourself and let it rise and see how you're blocking it or how you're stopping it.
Yeah.
Don't judge it, accept it, see it, see the action of going no. Um, and then what would be the last thing you would say in regards to men wanting to unlock that part of themselves?
I think it's important to see what happened back in the childhood, right? What was the childhood message that you got around crying? It's a big
Mm,
one. And I think as well, going back to obviously the video that we watched, that as I watched the guy in the video, my question around him and him not being okay with the other man crying was what was his relationship with crying and what is his, because the comment that he made was, yeah, men don't cry. And the interesting thing about that particular guy on Love Island, when he was in, he was behaving a little bit, he was with someone and then he was looking at other girls and all the rest of it, and his behavior wasn't necessarily liked by the public. But as I looked at him, I could see an uber masculine playing out there, which for me is on behalf of potential insecurity. But the way that he deals with the insecurity, instead of, being vulnerable about being insecure, it
mm,
goes to, I'm going to try and get validation from other women, in a sense. This was my prediction on it. And then when I heard him speaking about the other guy, in him, not being okay with him crying, again, it was just like, is he really driven by an uber masculine personality type that really could do with showing that vulnerability for him to actually, feel better in his life, but also to be liked more by the audience? Because all they're seeing is this masculine that's saying men shouldn't cry. He's looking at other women, and all of it, I'm thinking, what is this really a mask for?
mm.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what people don't realize. I'll just, men and women, that vulnerability is a superpower. The minute I was vulnerable, it unlocked more for me. It allowed me to have deeper connections. It allowed me to free myself from a lot of judgment and shame. I'm not saying I don't love to circle back there, because that's how I roll, but it's a superpower. It's a superpower in connection
Yeah.
and being able to sit with people and really be present for them because you're able to be vulnerable with them. It's being
Yeah.
vulnerable doesn't mean you're sitting there crying all the time and talking about your feelings. For me, being vulnerable is sitting with people and genuinely giving a fuck, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Genuine
Yeah.
openness, not mask.
Not being triggered by their emotion, right? It's a huge one.
Yeah.
And I think just as you said that as well, what it brought up as well is that thing of the more vulnerable a man can be in tapping into his own kind of stuff, the more that he will be able to be there also for his partner. And this reminds me of one of my friends a few weeks ago. I phoned him up and I was having a bit of a tear. I was crying about something to him, and he just didn't know what to do, but it was really sweet. But he tried, and he was like, it was just really lovely. And I spoke to him a few days later and I said, how was that for you? And he goes, I didn't know what to do. I don't know what to do when girls cry. And I was like, it's quite funny because you did handle it quite well. But it's like he doesn't know what to do because he doesn't allow himself. I've known him for a long time and I've never, heard him.
Yeah.
He does, but never seen him cry or anything like that. But that's the beauty of it as well. The more that we can do it individually, the more capacity we've also got to be the true protectors that we're maybe trying to be in that masculine. So it's like you can become a true
Yes.
protector in your masculine if you lean into that vulnerability in the feminine, whether you're a man or a woman.
Damn.
So,
That needs to be on a t-shirt. If you become vulnerable, you then become the true protector you desire to be in your masculine.
I love that.
Oh my God. Okay. Because we're trying to keep this short, wrapping it up. That was beautiful. So if you
Very cool.
lean into vulnerability, you get to become the true protector in your masculine. And who doesn't freaking want that? Wow. All right. Great. Thank you so much.
Great chat.
Thanks,
Thank
Anita.
you. Bye, love.